I'm not even joking. That scene is in the game, aside from the Moto Moto music. This guy was basically the first Moto Moto when you think about that, and that kinda horrifies me. Madagascar, a lovely kids movie about a group of friends that accidentally get sent to the wildlands of Madagascar, where someone ends up becoming a cannibal and tries to eat his friends. Don't look at me like I'm wrong. Rewatch the movie if you think that's not exactly what happened. Yeah, this movie is really dark when you think about it. It's interesting, I'll give it that, but it's really dark. Anyways, darkness that's in every child's movie aside, as with most movies, they of course have to get a video game tie-in. In fact, the whole trilogy did. Plus more branching off of the sub-series that grew from the Madagascar franchise. For now, we've got to be a little bit patient before we can get to those. But today, we'll be going over the Madagascar video game. The story between the game and the movie are the same, except not really. They are similar in a very vague version of the plot, but in terms of details they are not the same in the slightest. For one, there is a zoo hunter who is nighttime security, which there never was in the movie. He also ends up on the ship that moves the main cast for some reason, even though he kind of appears to die earlier. There's also a pretty decent cast of characters that aren't in the movie either, including a Fusa King that has fire powers, for some reason. And Alex's friends don't really seem the most concerned about the fact that he wants to, eat them now. Again, the details are incredibly off. Overall, it was still enjoyable, and I'd be lying if I said that it didn't at the very least follow the movie, vaguely at that, but it still works enough for the game. And I also understand having to make up some stuff for this game, since there is room for exploration and experimentation with the actual location of Madagascar. Though some stuff is kinda ridiculous, but nothing new feels like it pads out the game either, and as long as it doesn't feel like filler, that's perfectly fine by me. The quality for character models are split into two categories. Those that look really good and take these things away from my nightmares. The first category contains the bigger characters like Alex, who actually looks really good in this game by the way. And the other category has the smaller characters, like all of the lemurs, because none of them ever blink, and they're all deadpanned. They all look like they want to die. The only exception to this rule is Marty, because his eyes look half squinted a lot of the time, where it kinda doesn't feel like it's supposed to be that way. There are surprisingly few load screens in this game. Most transitions are very small, creating seamless gameplay, and when there are loading screens, usually the introductions for levels, they look like postcards. I do have to say that I much more favor stuff like this than looking at a completely black screen with an icon in the corner or something like that. The music is also really nice for this game. It's a mix between jungle tunes, which you can probably imagine why, and songs that sound like they're from Jet Set Radio. I'm not kidding. All around, the soundtrack is definitely something that I'd like to move it to. Look, I'm cringing too. I had to get at least one move it joke, okay? Now, in terms of voice actors, almost no one returns for this game. The only ones that are the same as the movie actors are the penguins, except Rico, he doesn't talk in this game, and Simon, the monkey that does talk. However, there are actually some pretty famous voice actors in this game. There's Wally Wingert, who's been a part of Bleach and the Arkham and Marvel games. Then there's Phil Lamar, who's a lot of people you probably know. Keith Ferguson, who's Marluxia, Reaper, and Blue. Try imagining all of those voices coming from one person. And D. Bradley Baker. Also, Quentin Flynn is in this game, as some minor characters like the delivery truck driver. Get back! Yeah, the voice cast is surprisingly really good for this game. I honestly kind of questioned if some of the voices were the same as the original, so they definitely do a good job. And for the ones that definitely don't sound the same at all, they're not too bad of replacements for this game. There are multiple playable characters in the game. You mostly play as Alex, Marty, Gloria, and Melman. Each character can collect power cards, and by getting 3 of them, that character will get a new ability. Alex plays the most normal for a 3D platformer. He's the only one with a double jump, and for attacks he has a roar, which can be made stronger with a particular plant for a short amount of time. However that works. Can throw mangoes and uses his claws, but that's only in the last level of the game, so we're not going to count that too much. Also, he can attract bees and lead them to flowers. They just like him or something. I don't really know why. Marty has the ability to kick, which can open gates and hurt enemies. He's also more agile than the other characters, as he can crawl along the ground, which later can also be used as a slide. I wonder who he learned that from. Anyways, he also has a long jump. Somehow. I know this is a reference to that one part at the beginning of the movie, but it still looks very strange, considering that it's also kind of a double jump. And speaking of which, Alex can also double jump, and those are probably the most normal things about this game. Gloria is the powerhouse of the group. She's got a tumble move, butt bounce, and hip check that looks like Peach's side special in Smash Bros. That are able to destroy large objects. When she eats jalapeno peppers, she runs fast for a short amount of time. I don't know why, there's literally no connection to this in the movies, she's just able to do it. When running like this, she'll ram through large objects like cars, crates, and boulders. Melman can spin along the ground, don't ask, and twirl around in the air like a helicopter, don't ask, and by him being over rising air during this, he gains altitude. I know you want to ask, but don't. I haven't been able to answer any other question so far. There's no reason I should be able to answer this one. He can also headbash enemies and throw certain objects sometimes, which I imagine he would never agree to do in real life, since that seems pretty dangerous, and he's afraid of almost everything to begin with, but whatever. In certain levels, there are totems that you can use to switch between these playable characters, since each character, as shown earlier, have different abilities that are useful for different tasks. There's also a level where you play as the penguins, or mainly Skipper anyways. The penguins have a much more stealthy approach to getting by, as Skipper can slide around and hide in boxes. I wonder who he learned that from. Anyways, Skipper can knock down, then knock out a nearby enemy by attacking them twice. Wherever there is a horn, Skipper can summon his team to follow him and somehow not alert everyone in a nearby radius. Sometimes the stealth tactics take a complete 180 and you take a tranquilizer gun and shoot down humans with tranq darts. If you need health for any character, you can collect tikis for a point of health, and getting 10 of them grants an extra life. Each level has 100 coins that you can collect, which you can use on items like upgrades, minigames, and costumes in a souvenir shop ran by Simon. Yeah, this game's definitely very weird. I couldn't have an answer for almost everything I mentioned earlier, so yeah. The game gives each character a good amount of playtime with all of the playable characters. Well, aside from the penguins, they only have one level. To be fair though, they don't really have much other material to work with in the first movie, and since this game roughly follows a movie, I can allow that. The characters' individual abilities allow for variety in gameplay, especially during the levels where you can change between multiple characters. There's also a tiny bit of exploration that you can do in this game too. Almost every level in the game has hidden stuff around it, like arcade machines, coins hidden in certain spots, stuff like that. This, with the fact that there is a decent amount of extra objectives and content in this game, gives a good amount of replay value. This game is also kinda challenging sometimes, mostly due to missions where you're on a time crunch, and I kinda wish that they were longer, but it does make a relatively fair challenge, so I'm fine with it. The humor in this game is really good too. Yes, a tiny bit of it is toilet humor, but the rest of it tends to be fourth wall breaks, and for me, the effectiveness can vary from me getting a chuckle to making me laugh loudly.
Plus, I'll make it up to you.
Ooh, baby, that was a kiss.
The souvenir items are fantastic. The upgrades you get actually affect the gameplay, and costumes can be seen in cutscenes if you equip them. You can also turn off all of these, including the upgrades, so that you can play the game normally without having to make a new file. The minigames you can purchase are also multiplayer, so if you feel like it, you can go and get them, but if you don't feel like paying for them, then you don't have to. "100%ing this game is actually kinda dumb. The reason why is how you get some of the coins in the game. Now you might think getting all of the coins in each level is easy since there's only 100 coins, and a good amount of them are easy to get. A good amount of them are out in the open for you, others are in pretty typical hiding spots when it comes to platformers, and some of them are harder to find than just that. However, the problem with collecting these measly 100 coins is that you have to do some stupidly time-consuming or convoluted tasks to get some of these coins. The penguin level requires you to reopen lockers that first give you health, so they'll then give you coins, and there's no indication or reason to assume that it'll do this. A level where you play as Alex requires you to send bees to flowers that are along the side of a cliff. and you'll have to go back up and down multiple times in order to get the coins from all the flowers along that cliffside. The very first area you start the game in has you run on Marty's treadmill for about 2 minutes. Why on earth would anyone assume that? There's even a few hidden behind other objectives that the game doesn't even tell you about, so you never know that you weren't doing them. All of this makes 100%ing this game a pain to try and do, as missing out on coins is extremely easy because of the bizarre actions that you wouldn't expect to do without knowing prior or doing them completely on accident. You can only turn off items in the souvenir shop. This is really an inconvenience since if you want to, you'd either have to go to it through the pause menu or go to the shop when in the map, and when you're really far away from the shop, there's no fast way to get there. A simple fix for this would to have the option to turn off items in the pause menu and just restart the level. This isn't too bad since it's usually just cosmetic stuff and the upgrades literally help you out anyways, so there's not really any reason to complain about that. Also, you have to purchase the ability to have multiple players for some minigames, which is kind of annoying. You're not able to use abilities gotten in further levels in past levels. Going into past levels means you have to recollect the cards, and considering that there's one ability you get in the very last level of the game, I feel like this is an incredibly missed opportunity. However, I don't really mind this all that much. While it would benefit the game for me to do whatever I wanted after beating the game, it doesn't really bring down the game's quality because it's missing this. Plus, I have the slightest feeling that if I was able to do some of these other actions, I'd probably be able to break the game. During the penguin segment of the game, when you summon your teammates, they will repeatedly say "hut" until they get over to Skipper. And it's incredibly annoying to hear this.
Hut, 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 hut.
I'm pretty sure that they don't ever say this, or at least if they do, they don't nearly say it as often as this. The only reason this is not in the bad segment is because this technically counts as a cutscene, and you are able to skip it. There's also the fact that there's only one penguin level, but that's besides the point. This game has a lot of charm to it that, to be honest, is pretty unexpected. It's a lot of fun for multiple reasons, at least most of the time. Again, the time crunches are kinda small, but it doesn't take too much from the game. The only major complaint that I have is around 100%ing this game, which a good amount of people won't even have to worry about in the first place. This is a license-based game that I can see in anyone's collection of games, with them occasionally going back to it. Finally, after a slew of mediocre to complete garbage games, I found a gem, and a really nice one at that. What's going on, my fellow residents? It's me, TheFrozenCavern, and thank you for making it to the end of this video. My goodness, I'm finally playing a good game. It just seems like March was filled to the brim with just mediocre to really bad games, as I mentioned earlier. And all I'm hoping is that I don't have another slew of mediocre to garbage games in one singular month. My goodness, that annoyed the ever-living crap out of me. But I know you guys also enjoyed the reviews, so it's perfectly fine. But regardless, make sure you guys go to the description, because that's where all of my social medias are located. My Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Discord are all in the description, and these are all ways of you guys being up to date on any videos that I upload, updates for the channel, content ideas, stuff like that. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as share this video out with your friends and family. But until next video, take care.